Alright, we're back where we left off again. We're back at the store, or at a store. Okay, I swallowed the last mouthful of coffee, drew in a deep breath of night air, and went back inside. I tossed the empty can into the store's recycling bin. I barely stepped through the door, and the automatic door haven't hadn't even finished closing when the shine went off again. In a frantic burst, a young woman came stumbling into the store. On the street, spaced out girls, other dressed and loud. Flashy clothes were nothing unusual. Normally, I wouldn't have given her a second glance, but there was something badly wrong with her. She looked like a small animal cornered with nowhere left to run. Her chest was waving as her lungs might have given out any second. Her bloodshot eyes darted wildly through the store's harsh lights as the searched for something a dark place to crawl into. Then her gaze was shot past the rows of shelves and fixed on the very end of the corridor. The storeroom door and half hidden behind the heavy plastic curtain marked no entry. Without a moment of hesitation, she ran for it, yanked the curtain aside, and disappeared into the dark beyond. Shit! Behind the plastic curtain, in the darkest corner of the room, sat the huge chest of freezer. Something lay hidden in that 20 below cold, something no one could ever be allowed to see. I didn't have time to think. I strode straight down the corridor toward the back. Ma'am! The word hadn't even left my mouth before something slapped me into hard from the side, reeking of cigarettes and sweat. A big man shoved past me like a charging boar, ramming in my shoulder aside, balancing towards the back. He hit me hard enough to make my shoulder flare with pain. Didn't so much look at me roughly, tore aside the plastic curtain before storming into the storeroom, bringing raw violence in with him. This was bad. Cut myself before I lost my footing, and a cold sweat broke across my back in an instant. Then I went after him. I pushed aside the curtain. The room, usually dark and dry, sealed off of its own refrigerant tainted hush, had been completely torn apart by a regular breathing and the presence of violence. The man had already pinned the girl against the wall besides the stacks of old cardboard boxes. At the sound of my footsteps, both of them stopped at once. In the dim light, they looked up and saw me standing in the doorway, my face gone still in stone. The man dragged out over me, cold and hostile. But the moment he noticed the name tag on my chest marking me as manager, a smile spread across his face, so forced and unnatural. It felt sharper than a blade. Sorry. His voice was rough, like it had been scraped raw. We'll be gone in a second. No one will believe a light transparent on a street where you could be swallowed by the hole at any moment. If a man like that gave you a smile like that and even handed you an excuse to back off, most people would pretend not to have seen anything and walk away. That was the smart move. But I couldn't back down, because hidden in this room was something far more dangerous than the man standing in front of me. I stood there, in the doorway, without retreating a single step, and looked at them in silence. Once he realized I wasn't leaving, the man seemed to lose interest in pretending. He turned back, twisted both of the girl's arms behind her with one hand, and began searching her mercilessly. With the other, he pawned through her pockets and ran his hand roughly all over her clothes, and finally shoved his hand inside her underwear. The girl let out a choked pain whimper. Beyond trembling despair, she seemed to have no strength left to fight back. 10 seconds later, apparently he still hadn't found what he was looking for, because he clicked his tongue in a irrational flung to the dusty floor like a piece of trash. Then his eyes began roaming across the cramped, dim storeroom with the hunger of a starving animal. They slid over the metal shelving, then over the piles of old cardboard boxes. At last, his gaze skipped past all the clutter and locked onto the chest freezer in the corner. Out of everything piled up in the room, it was the only thing big enough to hide something inside. He gave a cold snort, started and stared towards it. His dress shoes struck the concrete floor, slowly heavy steps as he headed straight for the freezer. Thud, thud, thud. Each footstep felt like blowing landing straight into my nerves. In that instant, I felt as the temperature around me had dropped all the way to below absolutely zero. I could not let him open it. He lifted a heavy metal lid and pushed aside the ice cream stack board. As a count flashed, then underneath would be that face, drained of all warmth no longer belonging to the living. The moment he saw it, the fragile world Koi and I had fought to hold together would come crashing down. In that mold, stinking room, I lurched forward, 2 quick steps. I shoved myself between the man and the freezer like a wall of flesh gone numb. I reached both hands behind me, clamped them around the cold hard metal edge. Knuckles were corpse pales from gripping so hard. That familiar faint of vibration coming up through my palms was, the moment, the only thing that would keep me on my feet. The man's hand stopped in mid-air. He froze, staring at me from less than half a meter away. The girl crumpled onto the floor, was looking at me with an expression I couldn't begin to name. It was the look of someone drowning who just caught a hold of the last scrap of driftwood left afloat. "I'm sorry, sir. This area is for employees only. Please go back." Out the sales floor. Even to my own ears, my own voice sounded colder than expected. "I just need one look, then I'm gone. I'm afraid I can't allow that." I kept my eyes fixed on this. This is the store's backstore freezer. It only contains unopened frozen stocks. Company policy strictly forbids customers from opening or handling its contents. At that moment, the air in the storeroom seemed to go rigid. The only sound in the whole room was the low, rasping breath of the compressor behind me. The man glared at me with undisguised hostility, and his stare felt sharp enough to strip skin. Then at last, he spat hard onto the dusty floor. He whipped around and jabbed a finger at the girl curled up on the ground, throwing one last threat at her. "Don't think this is over for you, bitch." With that, he roughly tore aside the plastic curtain and stormed out without a backward glance. The danger had passed. All the strength went out of me at once, and my legs nearly buckled, but I stayed leaning hard against the freezer. 20 below cold seeped through my thin coat into my skin, sharp enough to bite the bone, and yet it gave me a strange, almost sickening sense of relief. I let out a long, cloudy breath, and, still standing there in the front of the freezer, looked down at the girl slumped on the floor. "That's enough," I said in a flat, emotionless voice. "I don't know what you stole from him, but take it and get out of here." The girl blinked, clearly caught off guard by the coldness in my voice, but she snapped out of it almost and scrambled over hands and knees towards the collapsed pile of cardboard boxes where she'd been pinned down. She fumbled through a gas in the broken boxes a few times and seemed close to her hand around something. Then she turned her face, her eyes suddenly red, brimming over. Thank you. Thank you so much. Her voice thick with tears. She bowed deeply towards me. Faced with that tear-streaked, snot-smeared face, with the way she looked at me, as though I truly saved her, all I could do was twitch one corner of my mouth. From her point of view, I must have looked like some rare decent people left on the street. Some kind of savior risen out of the mud. Some willing to stand in front of a violent man to protect someone weaker than themselves. What a ridiculous misunderstanding. I didn't care whether the man beat you to death. I didn't care what you were hiding. If he strangled you right there in front of me, I would have flinched, as long as he didn't dirty my freezer. All I'd done was desperately protect unspeakable guilty bits of koi, and I kept hidden from the light. No shit, evasion. Alright, so it seems like it was just like some cold dude, like just we are basically protecting our own secret. Well, ours, me and Koi's, and man, it is getting darker. Can't wait for to see what's next. Shall see then. Bye bye.